Hello again, and as promised, this is part 2 of week 7 on color. And now we're going to talk about the psychology of color. Today it is believed color not only enhances the appearance of an object or design, but it also influences emotion and behavior. Now, before I get into this, these are just theories. It's not something that you can take as fact. But these are just theories, and these are the theories behind design, and these are the theories behind color use, and it changes. So when we go through this, do keep that in mind. So, the theory of the response to red. Emotionally, we respond or we interpret red as love, vitality, courage, passion, or danger. In other words, when the bull sees red, that means he's angry. It's passion. Physically, there have been some experiments that show that red can increase blood pressure and the respiratory rate of people. It can aid in digestion, and it can increase your strength, probably because you have higher blood pressure and respiratory rate. Behaviorally, red has been linked to aggressiveness, sensuousness, extremes. It can also be linked with athletic type pursuits, impulsiveness, and bullying. Orange. The emotional value of orange is it's an active, bold, exuberant, cheerful, vigorous color. It's a happy, bouncy color. Physically, it has been shown to decrease irritability, decrease hostility, and improve social behavior. Orange is a happy color. How could you be upset around orange? Behaviorally, it is linked with gregarious activity, active or very active activity, a social activity, being jovial, pleasure-seeking, or perhaps fickle. You want one thing and then you want another. Yellow, the emotional quality of yellow is optimism, irritability, wisdom, cheer, annoyance, and warmth. And you say to yourself, these kind of conflict one another, and they do. It depends on your conditioning, and it depends on your favorability or your whether or not you like yellow. Yellow can be optimistic. A sunny yellow day, when you paint a sun as a child, you always paint it as yellow. Is the sun yellow? No, it's blazing hot white. But we just say yellow is a cheerful, bright color. Irritability, though, it can kind of be irritating. I imagine if you're surrounded with bright yellow for a long time, it can kind of overload your senses. Physically, yellow has been linked to increasing irritability and hostility, sharpen your memory, aids your digestion, stimulates circulation and appetite. Behaviorally, it's been linked with caution, debate, egotism, innovation, introspection, communication, and discrimination. Green. Emotionally, we see green as evidence of growth, envy, green with envy, inexperience, still, green. You refer to somebody as green, that means they're inexperienced or naive. Refreshment, birth, because it's springtime. Jealousy, wealth, that's the color of money. Well, used to be, although today's money is pretty colorful. And compassion. Physically, green has been linked with rejuvenation, expansiveness, and balance. Behaviorally, we see green as a color that represents moderation, normalcy, balance, convention, traditional, and quietly social. It also means, today, going green means you're ecologically minded or you're ecologically concerned. Blue. Blue, by the way, is the most popular color in the world. If you ask 20 people what their favorite color is, you'll probably have more of them say blue than anything else. It depends. Designers have a tendency to be a little eclectic. If you go out and just ask the people on the street, I want to qualify that. Blue is linked emotionally with serenity, peace, sadness. You feeling blue? Loyalty, true blue. Sincerity. People wear blue if they want to be trusted. And justice. Physically, it's been shown to lower blood pressure, slow respiratory rate, be perceived as cooling and relaxing, and an antidote for red. Think about it. Blue is cool, red is hot. Blue is water, even though water typically isn't blue, unless you're in the Caribbean, and then it's kind of a greenish blue, but I digress. So blue we see as a color of water. It's cooling. It relaxes you. So if you want a relaxing color in wherever you sleep, paint the walls blue. Behaviorally, it's been linked or determined to be conceptual, rigid. Blue means trustworthy. We see bankers in blue suits. We see them as unbending, very trustworthy, but unbending with their rules. Loyal, again, that true blue. Astute, responsible, pragmatic, manipulative, conservative, and authoritative. The authoritative and the manipulative, again, could be a learned response because blue has been used to do that trustworthy thing. And so we see people who wear uniforms and they're often blue. Violet, the emotional response, or the emotional, it equals the emotional equivalent of royalty. And I will tell you that that's more of a learned behavior because violet or purple, back when we had to create colors from organic substances, was the most expensive color to have to create because it was created by grinding up a stone called lapis lazuli, and it was very rare. So that color was reserved for royalty because it was such an expensive color to produce. It also says quietness, supremacy, again with that royalty, and reverence. Physically, it lowers blood pressure, depresses the appetite, quiets overactive glands and organs, quiets overactive internal dialogue. In other words, it's relaxing again. Behaviorally, it represents elegance, spirituality, reverence, creativity, daydreaming, or philosophical feelings or behaviors. Pink, emotional, guarded. Physically, it weakens muscles, stimulates sweet tooth. There have actually been places such as I believe there was a jail, and I cannot remember where it was, where they painted all the walls pink because it was supposed to weaken the muscles and kind of make people not aggressive. I don't know if it worked. Actually, what they've found is if you put somebody in a completely pink room or any particular colored room, you will get that initial response, but then as the person becomes used to that color, you kind of lose that response. So, but it's fun to think about. But behaviorally, it means gentle, friendly, protective, and indulged. Barbie is pink. Barbie is indulged. Brown, the emotional qualities of brown: earthiness, because that's the color of dirt, natural, casual, embraced, tranquil, bored, and safe. Physically, it means encompassed or dull. Behaviorally, we see brown as homespun or shrewd, sturdy, reliable, stable, ultra-conservative. White emotionally means joy, hope, purity, innocence, cleanliness, enlightenment. Behaviorally, it can mean individualism, indecision, idealism, and optimism. Black, we know this one: mourning, mystery, fright, elegance, dignity, sophistication, uncertainty, intimidating. Behaviorally, mourning, fatigue, worldly, stunning, powerful, aloof, intimidating, dignified, or mysterious. So, what is this all about? These responses to colors, how we interpret colors. And by the way, all of these responses and interpretations that I just went through are our Western culture interpretations. It is good to be aware that in other cultures, colors are perceived differently, such as white or red. So be careful of that if you're crossing cultural boundaries as far as color use. I just primarily focused on the Western interpretations. And the reason you need to know this as a designer is because those colors can say things to people. We're used to seeing certain colors in certain situations. We're used to seeing certain colors represent certain things. So you have to be careful in design so you don't use the wrong color. For instance, we've learned from long ago that blue is for boys and pink is for girls, which, by the way, is a recent phenomenon. Back in the Victorian era, in the 18th century, even the 19th century, pink was for boys. But somehow it turned out to be for girls. I don't know why. That's perhaps something that someone can look up for extra credit. Red is for fire trucks, but today it can also be that yellow-green color because that's that safety color. Yellow and black together means danger. White is for weddings and black is for funerals. So these are learned color responses. And how that applies in day-to-day life, for instance, recently it was found that many police departments are going back to the black and white cruisers because that's what we equate to a police cruiser. And they want to be recognized as police cruisers for various reasons. And they found if they made them blue or if they made them red or they made them different colors, people didn't see them or trust them as police cruisers. So many police departments across the United States are going back to the black and white colors. They're toning down all the various colors. And that's because of a learned color response. Also, fire engines have always been red. You're always seeing fire engines as red. Some fire some fire departments went with the yellow-green color because they are more visible. And you need a fire truck to be visible when it's racing down the street trying to get through traffic. Well, they actually went back to the red because people think fire trucks need to be red. It's a learned response. And they found that if they were yellow-green, the fire trucks weren't as popular with the public. And because it's publicly funded, they needed to be popular. So that's a little bit about color, a little background about color, and how important color can be in design. Yes, a red fire truck is designed with the red. So all of this means you need to be aware of the emotion you're trying to convey with your color choices. You have to be careful of it. You have to know your audience. You have to know the colors that they have a favorable response to, or what that color says to them. Now, color contrast. There are 3 methods by which you can create contrast through color. And as we know, contrast is very important in design. You can create contrast through value, contrast through hue, or simultaneous contrast through value and hue. Contrast through value. Contrast through value does not involve color or hue. Instead, it deals with the lightness or darkness, the tints and shades of a color. Dark blue besides light blue, for instance. Opposite values tend to give brilliance and purity to one another. So, I'm going to show you some optical illusions. A color appears darker when the color around it is lighter. It is also less pure. A color appears lighter when the color around it is darker. It also gives purity to the color. This is the same exact shade of gray as this. But if you look at this on your screen, this looks like a lighter gray. It's not. It's the same exact shade. But it's surrounded by white here, so this color appears less pure. It's darker. Surrounded by black, it appears much lighter or more pure. Yes, the blue inside both large squares is the same exact color. This blue is the same color as this blue. It's just that this blue is surrounded by a darker blue, which means this appears lighter or more pure, more vibrant, and this blue box is surrounded by a lighter blue box, which takes away that lightness, which makes it look more dull. So contrast, another way to achieve contrast is through hue or color. Contrast through hue or color is based on the differences that exist between 2 colors. The contrast between 2 different colors or hues is most noticeable when they are both similar in value. And remember, value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So in the previous example of creating contrast, we were just using lightness and darkness. We were using the same colors, or we were using just black and white. Now we're going to be creating contrast through 2 different colors. And you're going to see how they work together to create this contrast. So, again, the red in the middle is the same exact red. But if you look at the difference, and they're both red and green, but if you look, I have this maximum contrast of the same values. And you see how that red just vibrates and just pops right out? Over here, the green is much lighter. In other words, it has a lighter value. And you notice that the red looks darker. Again, we're using simultaneous contrast here of both value and color. These are contrasting colors. These colors are most far apart on the color wheel, and they are opposite one another. So not only are we creating contrast through the opposite values, but we're also creating contrast through lightness and darkness. Simultaneous contrast, which is what we just saw. Contrast achieved by using both value and hue together. Again, you see this yellow. It looks kind of dull, and it's surrounded by white. Because remember, if you surround it with a lighter color, it becomes lighter. If you surround it with a darker color, it becomes brighter. So now we've surrounded this yellow with its opposite of blue. On the color wheel, yellow is across from blue on the color wheel, so it doesn't share that much in common. In other words, it has high contrast in just the hue of yellow and blue. But we've also made it a dark blue and a light yellow. So you can see how this yellow again pops. It looks lighter, it looks brighter and more vibrant. But it's the same color, the same hue, the same shade of yellow. So with this, and why we talk about this, and creating contrast through color, you must always be aware of this color interaction. You must always consider not only how colors contrast each other, but how they interact or work together. So two things to remember about color interaction. Any hue subtracts its own hue from the color which it carries. In other words, if you have gray on white, that white is going to be subtracting white from the gray and making it look darker and more dull. Now, if you have that gray on black, the black will be subtracting from that gray and making the gray look more pure. Does that make sense? A hue will cast its complementary hue onto a neighboring hue or color. So, for instance, on the red and green, how we had the green surrounding the red, well, the opposite of green, or its complementary color, is red. So if you put red surrounded by green, that green casts its red into the red, like making it more rich. If we had surrounded green with red, it would cast green onto the red, making it look more rich. I know it's confusing, but just go back and look at those examples and you'll see what I mean. And the bottom line is you have to be careful about your color combinations. So, for instance, this green box is surrounded by yellow. The green takes on a bluish hue because the opposite of yellow is blue, or purple. Here, the green takes on a yellowish hue because the opposite of the blue is the yellow. This is the same color green. So this is what I'm talking about. It casts its complement onto the color which it surrounds, or the dominant color casts its complement onto the color that it's next to. So keep that in mind. Have you ever tried to put colors together and they should work together, but then you look at them and you look at the colors separate from one another and you're like, oh, this is a really great green and this is a really great blue, and then you put them together and you go, ooh, yick. Or or you have green and yellow and you put them together and ugh, they don't look good together. That's because of this color interaction, and as designers we have to be aware of that. So as we've seen, color is a complicated topic. I've condensed the bare necessities down into these two presentations, but it does have challenges and rewards. The challenges of using color in design is you have to deal with additive versus subtractive color theory. What you see on the screen isn't necessarily what you're going to get in the print. The other challenge, picking color within the software program. How do you pick it? And you're picking it in an additive situation and you may be creating something for subtractive. Web-safe colors you don't have to worry about anymore. It used to be that they dithered. That isn't really a factor anymore. And you also have to worry about gamut. The screen, the number of colors we can see on the screen, there are far more colors we can see on a screen through additive color theory than than what we can produce in print. So you have to be aware of the gamuts, the gamut of how many colors you see on the screen versus the gamut of what you can create in print. But the rewards of color can be great. It adds value and contrast to your design. It can create visual hierarchy through using that contrast. It can add repetition and continuity, richness, texture, depth, and emotion. It can also aid in organization. Fill in all the blue boxes. Fill in all the yellow boxes. Look at all the blue areas. Look in charts. You use color to aid in organization. It can give emphasis and it can provide direction in your design. Now, to use color to aid organization, or just for good design in general, make sure when you start a design that you develop a color strategy. Plan the color use from the start, and then use it consistently. When you use color to give emphasis, consider the type's color or gray value. Darker type is seen first. If you've ever seen a lot of body copy or a paragraph, that type has a color. And depending on the typeface you choose, which we're going to be talking about, which we've talked about, it can have a color to it. It also highlights elements of importance with color. You can use red to make something stand out from a design. Use colors to provide direction. Warm colors move elements forward. Cool colors move elements back toward the background. But be careful with color. Choose the appropriate colors to attract your target audience. Know how to combine colors effectively. Know how to elicit a mood with a color, and watch your gamuts. So, in summary, color is an effective way to add interest to your design. However, it is not as easy as just adding any color. You must consider the medium, you must consider the audience, and you must consider the message. And then you must consider all of that background information that conveys that through color. So thanks so much. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.